Morning, everybody, and welcome back to ShiftHappens, your apocalypse podcast. I'm Rob Thompson, and I'm here again with Jesse Campbell, and we're here this morning to talk about, I think, intentionality. And just a reminder that this is a free-form conversation, not scripted. We have a general guideline. We just want to address the coming changes. And Jesse just made a comment before this podcast that he said, "What a time to be alive." Mm-hmm. Why did you say that, Jesse?
We live in interesting times right now, and you'll see people joke around on memes on social media and stuff. This is the kind of thing that you read about in history books, where it follows, and then other events led to this, other events led to that, and it's absolutely true. We are in such a crazy time right now that you almost have to revel in it. Within every crisis, there's some sort of advantage to be taken. I can't wait to see what those are. So I think these ideas and these concepts, these themes will start to surface today, especially with intentionality. On that, I just found a quick peer-reviewed article where it just has a little blip on intentionality. It's not very clear, ironically.
That is ironic.
It's not very, there's no intent. Anyways. One good thing that I found, and this is from the Journal of Metaphysics. It's the way intentionality is the way concepts mediate the relation between minds and the world.
I love that quote. Before we dissect that a little bit, I want to just point out, when I did the intro, I said the Apocalypse podcast. I don't necessarily... I think that's a bad thing. Apocalypse, maybe in the biblical sense, that's a pretty dramatic bad thing. But we talked last time about catabolic collapse, and you mentioned something about it that has stuck with me for the last couple of days. It's a phenomenon. It is what it is. This podcast is not attempting to assert a moral value to it. It's just a series of freeform conversations where we talk about the coming change and this time and what I have to. Maybe this is a historical phenomenon, but it feels like we're at the nexus point of history. But you could probably argue that any given point in time is the nexus point of that history. So let me ask you something. You said you revel in it. This might be too personal a question, and you can tell me to don't ask. Back off. Yeah. You're a father.
Yes.
I am too. I have two little girls. I have a hard time reveling in the chaos that I see. Because I have kids. How do you, and I'm not suggesting you do, but how do you revel in it as a father?
I think it really comes down to a personal philosophy. If I'm going to do what I'm going to have to do to get ahead, absolutely. I'll say it right now. I am a bit of an elitist as far as merit goes. A merit-based elitist, definitely. I think that, and this really comes down to a question of justice, getting what you deserve. But I feel like if you work for something, then you deserve the fruits of your labor. That said, going back to this paradigmatic shift that we're going through, how can I revel in it? Well, that means that there's going to be new opportunities that have never yet existed before, and I can't wait to find out what they're going to be and take advantage of them.
I'm trying to get to where you are mentally. For a long time, I as a growing adult, and I thought, how cool would it be for somebody to come shake up the status quo? Mm-hmm. And here we are, where I feel we're at that point.
You got what you asked for.
Yeah, and now I find myself personally. I don't want to say scared. That might be my ego talking. Scared for my ability to provide for my daughters, and continued ability, and maybe that's just a resiliency function I need to work on. But that rolls into starting this podcast this year and having these series of conversations. It rolls into today's topic of intentionality. And if we zero back in on that definition, you said intentionality is the way concepts mediate the relationship between minds in the world. That's pretty deep.
That's pretty deep. It did come from a Journal of Metaphysics, so pretty much everything you read in there, you're going to have to take a second to think about it. The way I'm seeing this play out is, are you thinking about what you're doing?
I mean, that's a good translation.
And that's a great question to ask. Are you thinking about what you're doing?
Webster, I believe, or Google, which pulls up the definition of or dictionary.com, says intentionality is the quality of mental states that consists in their being directed towards some object or state of affairs, or the fact of being deliberate or purposive. So yeah, are you thinking about what you're doing?
Yeah.
There are thousands upon thousands of self-help books, and I was thinking about it recently, and why are there so many, right? Why so many different philosophies of and frameworks and self-help books? And I think it's just kind of the state of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many because intentionality means something different. Framework means something different to each of us. You got to find one that works for you. So this year, one of my resolutions, my core resolution is actually intentionality. That's the word I used. And for me, I'm trying to slow down in my thought processes and not be. Bear with the broken thought process here, folks. But I took a Seth Godin seminar last year, and one of the modules was about dichotomy of choices, and I feel like the world right now is at this point, and the speed of decisions and the speed of communication is at where we're continually, daily, many times a day, confronted with this thing that says you must choose A or B, and you must choose right now. And one of the Seth Godin's principles in this module was that you are not bound by these dichotomy of choices, that there are other options, that you can say, and I have several times in the last year in business and life said that, you know what, I hit pause when I'm confronted with an A-B choice. I hit pause mentally, and I say, and I've said a couple times out loud, I refuse to be bound by those dichotomy of choices, and it really disarms people too when you do that. but then stopped and thought and said, okay, with intentionality, what are my other choices? You know, I don't have to do A or B. I can refuse to participate, and that's a third choice, right? We were talking before the podcast as we were preparing. One of the anecdotes that I read or things I read was about the speed of communication. You know, back in the horse and buggy days, if somebody wrote a letter to somebody, you knew that letter was going to take weeks to arrive at its destination. You knew this was your one shot. You didn't want your message to be misinterpreted. So it seems to me, although I wasn't alive then, close, but not.
I'm sure you wrote letters in boot camp.
Yeah, well, there you go. So we knew our receiver of that message, you didn't want to miscommunicate. So I feel like communication was more deliberative and more thoughtful. And now it's, if you get a text message, I feel a physical compulsion to respond immediately. But sometimes the message requires thought. So this, for example, in the last couple of weeks, specifically, and committed this year, if I get a message on Facebook or text, and it requires, in my opinion, deeper thought, I've actually said to the person, your message requires a deeper level of response than I'm capable of giving at this moment. So please bear with me, and I'll be back in touch, and I will respond. So that's how it's manifesting for me.
Thinking about what you're doing.
Thinking about what I'm doing,
Yeah.
but also being willing to say, I'm not going to let technology, I'm not going to let the demands of today force me into a response that I'm not prepared to give, and I'm willing to be a rock while the water flows around me, if the water is the speed of communication and stuff today. You had a good point about this a minute ago, though, when I said this year I'm going to be a rock in the water.
Pretty much my point was, if that is the case, you're going to be wore down. That does bring to mind, Taoism, going with the flow, the art of not doing, or, Aristotle kind of touched on this a little bit too, but flourishing through character to become more of who you should be. And that's definitely very, there's no way to define that, but my point, applying it back to the river and the rock, you could either stay there or you could go with the flow. And if you go with the flow, why not swim with it and maybe go faster than the flow? Why not, intentionally? I think both cases require intentionality, staying right here or going farther and faster than everything else around me. Anything else, however, may not.
So going with the flow, I think my analogy of the rock is a poor one because it doesn't quite capture the mental image I have. It's more maybe letting the water flow around me, not implying that I intend to be a stick in the mud that gets, or a rock that gets eroded from, because just that image causes me a little mental stress. More like, I like the going with the flow, but the mental image in my head is of seaweed, seaweed on the floor bed, right? It goes with the flow. It doesn't get eroded. It
grows actually.
It does. It grows. Oh, look at that. It grows. It grows in the water, and but it also ebbs and flows with the currents and the tides. And you can't see it, but I'm doing a little dance right now, ebbing and flowing. So that's my philosophy. Just being more intentional this year with my thought, slowing down a bit, refusing to participate in that speed of thought. Yeah, and being willing to have the mental fortitude to say to somebody, I want to respond at depth. I feel this message requires more thought than K or okay or an emoticon thumbs up.
The questions will keep on coming too if you just answer them fast. And so if you keep on answering more and more questions fast like that, it's kind of who you become.
Yeah, it is. And then before you know it, you're a couple years down the road, and you are operating faster than everything around you. But that comes at a cost too, and a cost of depth, and so it's very, very interesting. There's if you bear with me here, but I wrote an essay for my daughters, and so this is a parallel thought here. Kind of the segue might be a little rough, but the follow-on question I had was: do words even matter? Does this even matter in our 20? I guess that's a good segue. So with our 24/7. Communication flow, instant text message, or demand response. You and I both are in real estate. There is something that, don't quote me exactly on the numbers, but the mantra in the industry is if you don't reply to a text message inside 3 minutes, you've probably lost the client on a new query. And about a year and a half ago now, I got a Zillow referral. My phone rang, and I could see it was from Zillow. And I looked up at the table. We were eating dinner. I looked at my wife. She gave me the look that said, if you answer that phone, I will kill you. And,
you nodded at me. I really thought you were going to say something different. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. So she looked at me, she said that, and so I pushed my phone away from the table, flipped it over, and made the intentional choice that I would call back after dinner. I called back 37 minutes later, and the individual told me, the first thing he said, I said, hey, it's Rob Thompson with the agency calling back. Sorry, Mr. Call, I was eating dinner. And he said, you're too slow. I called another agent. I said, nope, you have a good day, sir, and best of luck with your purchase.
That's going to be an impatient
client,
probably.
So this intentionality comes at a cost. Maybe I should have texted him and said, hey, I'm eating dinner, I'll call you right back.
But I mean, if you're the guy that answers that Zillow call no matter what, and you're picking up the people that are only working with you because you did that,
there's a path there.
There's a pathway that you're taking. You're developing your own niche where you specialize in, I guess for the lack of better words, high cost clients. There's going to be a high demand from them.
Communication clients.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something that we do in our contracts is we put there, give us within 24 hours. I am within the contract of our listing agreement here. You, the buyer or seller, and me, the agent. That if just so long as I respond within 24 hours, and I normally respond before that, but I think it sets a good precedence that says, hey,
it's an excellent idea, Jesse.
Calm down. This is fine. I do this for a living. And if you're not getting the people that are going to be okay with that, which I promise you they will be.
If you set the expectation.
If you set that expectation, they're going to be fine with it. But if you get the people where, no, I need all of your time all the time, that's who you're going to work with. And I'm sorry, you're probably not going to like work as much.
That's great. That's a great...
so your intentionality kind of saved you there.
Yeah. No, it did. I did. And I think as I go forward, I'm going to specifically set a guideline with my clients and say, hey, are you okay if, just as a rule of thumb, it might take me 2 hours to respond to your text message, just as a rule of thumb. I'm trying to, I'll have a philosophical conversation with them. If it's an emergency, I will respond immediately.
Yeah.
But give me, okay. So in that same line, in this 24/7 crazy communication world that I think is going to get quote worse, or maybe it'll still speed up. I predict by the end of next year we're going to have Oakley-sized sunglasses. That's not a plug for Oakley. I'm not paid. No endorsement.
Unless we get money from
Oakley. Unless Oakley, if you're listening, please send me some money. We're going to have Oakley-sized sunglasses that are augmented reality, and there'll be sensors on the front of the glass embedded in it where you can reach out and interact with the augmented hologram, so to speak. I think that's coming. So if we think it's bad now and you think we're distracted by our phones now, wait until the alerts are in our field of vision. And a text message, bing, in your right eyeball.
Yeah,
you see.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was just getting a call too, and I had to look at my phone.
You had to. You couldn't. You did. Did you feel a physical compulsion to see who it was versus silencing the phone?
I did actually. Yeah. I actually looked at the phone rather than just silencing it.
So I'll tell you something that happened to me the other day. I was tucking my daughter into bed, and given our profession, right, it's and the amount of work we do on social media, it's a kind of given. But I was tucking her into bed, and I had my phone in my hand, and for some reason I looked down at my phone, and no calls were coming in or alerts. But I looked and I realized I had not put my phone down since I dropped them off at school. So I'd had my phone in my hand. I think physically, it was a very high volume call day. I think I had my phone physically in my hand for about 11 hours.
Yeah.
And I reached back and I couldn't remember ever not having it in my hand that day.
These days happen.
Yeah, they do. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's a state. Gary Vee actually says, and Gary Vee, you're welcome to call me too, and bring me on your show and mentor me.
Anybody that wants to give us money is what we're saying.
Yeah, shameless plug. He said something like that. There was an anecdote on one of his shows, and he said, some people you walk into restaurants, you see everybody on their phones, or you see a couple on their phone, and we tend to judge them. We tend to say, oh, that's messed up. He said, however, technology doesn't enable us; it exposes us. And he said, 10 years ago, that couple, they'd been sitting at the table, they wouldn't have been talking to each other. If that's their relationship dynamic, it's just manifesting through technology now. And his point, I think, there was it's not going to get better. It's not. That is what it is, and it's only going to get more intrusive. And so he said something that I think you will relate to, given our conversation on this topic. You know what? If that's where their attention is going to be, they're going to be watching his videos on that phone or listening to his podcast. So he's all in and kind of not exploiting, but I'm struggling for the thought here. But if that's how the world is going to be, he's going to be the thought leader in that.
He's
world.
Going with it.
Yep,
he's swimming down the river.
He is. He's outpacing everybody. He's Michael Phelps. He's the Michael Phelps of instant communication and methodology. So all that said, do words even matter anymore? Does intentionality, does it matter?
I think whether or not words matter, it's hard to say. I do think though that intentionality is a necessary condition if words do matter.
Intentionality is a necessary. I'm going to quote you on that. Intentionality is a necessary condition if words do matter. Something I wrote to my daughters in if words matter was this. I said to them, words are not just words. Words have power. They are an act of will. They are an expression of a thought. They are the physical manifestation of an intent to speak, the audible result of will. They are thoughts given life, an act which inspires others to further action. Give care, my daughters, as you give life to your thoughts as words, for they have the power to harm, to cut, and to wound. Have hope, my daughters, as you give life to your thoughts as words, for they also have the power to help, to heal, and to lift up. There's a little bit more, but I'll stop there for the purpose of our podcast. I think they matter. I think intentionality matters. And I think the manifestation of words matters. And
if they have power, then they matter.
Do they have power?
And I think they do. I can say purple dragon, and you just imagine the purple dragon.
I did. Yeah, literally.
I made you do that, Rob.
So and now purple dragons will be on my mind at some point in the day, and I might be silly with my girls and be a purple dragon later on, right? And you will have
manifest.
Inspired physical action, right? So we live in a time right now where we're being told though that words don't matter.
But they absolutely do. I just illustrated it, and because words do have power, then they do matter, and because they do matter, intentionality is a necessary condition to, at the very least, have power. If you want to have power, you need intentionality. If you follow my syllogism as illustrated in parts.
How would you sum that up? You'd say, if words matter, intentionality matters, and words matter because they manifest physical action. They drive people to action. Yeah.
Long story short, if you want power, if you want power, you're gonna need intentionality. That's a justification for intentionality. Power, I mean, I'm sure there's other links you can make, but that's one that comes to my mind. I personally want power. I want to rule the world. I want all of it. I'm gonna try to take it. So I'm gonna use words. That's kind of what I do now.
It is. At the higher level that I'm hinting at, but deliberately avoiding, there is, something that just occurred to me. Words matter, but that doesn't mean that I will agree with those words. That doesn't mean that they will be in a manner that I like, or that people like. Look, I'll just put cards on the table. Trump and his words. You could argue that here's a guy who assumed power, and he used words very intentionally, and it worked.
Actually, you used an intentional word there, assumed power. Technically, he rose to power.
That's true.
He was duly elected, so
you're right.
You said assume. The thought that presumes is that he, it's like Napoleon taking the crown from the Pope and putting it on his head and declaring himself emperor. That's not what happened, but with your statement there, that's what I imagine happening. So
no, that's right.
Words have power.
They do, and so in saying that, I revealed my own bias, and I directed your thought process towards us, and you now know something about me, and that you can extrapolate on.
Well, even then, what if someone just glazed over on the assumed part, and then they accepted what you said as a whole?
Right. I've just changed partially the characterization of how they might view that individual. Yeah, words matter.
Words matter.
Words matter.
So therefore, intentionality
matters.
Yeah.
So words drive people. Could we sum up this podcast as saying words drive people to action? Words matter. So words drive people to action. If words matter, then intentionality matters.
And I would say words do matter because it drives people to action.
Yeah. But now there's a whole other component of merit or an expectation of merit to those words, that I am not the center of the universe, and therefore I may or may not agree with how those words are wielded. It's where I'm going with this, and we'll end here. But I'll give you the last word. But I'm struggling to articulate it. We all have our vision of what things should look like, and I've been struggling with the concept, watching what's happening on the political spectrum, and I've been saying even that I don't think words matter anymore. Clearly, words don't matter anymore. But what you just said, just flip that paradigm in my head. They clearly still do matter. It's just I don't like how they've been wielded.
And that's fine too.
And that's
you don't have to like them.
No. Yeah, but we're.
This goes back to rhetoric from last time.
It does.
Do you agree or not? But even if you don't agree, are you still doing what the intent behind the words were? What if I make you disagree with me to make you hate something that I make it appear to be for, or something like that? The use of rhetoric just works out like that. Going back to Trump, there's been, like, in The Art of the Deal and whatever. I haven't actually read it myself. I've heard synopsis of it. I don't care. I'm not going to read it ever. But part of his philosophy there with negotiations is and there's been numerous people that have backed up this. He'll burst into a room full of like directors and CEOs or whatever, and he'll start making outrageous claims. He'll be very bolsterous, and then as soon as everybody's all riled up, like, what? No, we're not giving you that. Then he calms down and he gets to a point where he's starting to say, all right, then what will you give me? And then all of a sudden he's getting something. He wanted something from that.
And
he wanted them to give something.
And in doing so, he even the phrasing of that question that you just said. Okay, then what will you give me? It implies it's a sleight of hand.
You're going to give me something.
Yeah. And now he's primed the room. But then he appears to be being gracious. But even the phrasing of the question, "What will you give me?" Then it still puts you in a position where you feel compelled to. Okay, well, we got to give him something. And
they probably actually don't.
That's going back to the very original. One of the original thoughts here was that paradigm where, okay, we need to hit pause and say, that's you're presenting, or in that scenario, to play that scenario out. I would try mentally to hit pause and say, I refuse to accept your dichotomy of choice. It isn't I give you something, or it isn't I give you this big thing you just made this boisterous claim to, or the smaller thing that you'll accept. There's a third choice. I cannot participate. Or a fourth choice, I can give you nothing.
Unfortunately, though, it happens. Look at North Korea. How about we go to nuclear war? Well, how about we talk to South Korea instead? I mean, is that what he did on purpose?
I will say this, and he is so consistent in the application of those words in a chaos format that
he may be incredibly intentional.
Yes,
he's Michael Phelpsing us.
Oh, I hate that analogy for a number of reasons, but and the implications of that analogy. But that's my own bias.
You kind of have to concede to it because it's
it's clearly effective. It just, like we said a minute ago, it might not. It's not
necessarily true, but it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible, but also you cannot deny the effectiveness of it. At the same time, I'll sit and say that
if the effect and the intent align, then this man's a genius.
Yes, and then but genius again does not imply endorsement of the way those words and intentionality is wielded.
Well, it's an art. It's not necessarily objectively true. It's not like a duty to concede to,
Well, and I think we're dancing around the central statement there is that lost it. Basically, he doesn't have to. The world, the universe, is not compelled to conform to our specific worldview, and
not quite the opposite, really.
Right. Well, I mean, where our framework that we apply to try and make sense of the world.
It's relative to the universe,
or
the maxims within it. From the very basic level, where the stars are. Where the stars are is factually accurate. Where we are, we live on Earth. There's a whole lot of maxims we can pull out that build our framework, but
in the end, we are victim. Not victim. We are
susceptible,
or subjected to. We are subjects of a physical reality, and trying to interpret it.
And that kind of goes back to the question: do words matter? That's a bit of a nihilistic question, if you ask me. Okay. On that, now that we're talking about like the maxims of the universe and all this aggrandized things, one note on nihilism that I consistently hold is, if things don't matter, though, on the other side of things, if things don't matter, you might as well still do as many rad things in life as possible, because if nothing matters, then there's no reason not to.
Yeah.
So if words matter, great, intent is important. If it doesn't, still kind of important, really.
If this is it, then this you might as well maximize your experience. Yeah.
So either way, intentionality to wrap this all up, it's important. So start thinking about what you're doing.
There you go. Okay. Well, thank you guys for your time. I don't have a topic for the next one yet. I'm going to be very intentional and think about and listen to this podcast. And when we'll have a topic by the time this makes it to posting to Facebook. All right. Thank you. Any last words, Jesse?
That's it.
All right. That's it. Is that a metaphor for the heat death of the universe?
No.
That's it.
That's just it.
Just okay.
Or it is.
Or it is.
Depends
Who
what
knows?
you want.
And it depends. It's relative, right? Talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.